Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to be working on a self-portrait, and what I'm doing right now is blocking in the shapes. I'm really trying to figure out how big I want this self-portrait to be. So I'm playing around with the size of my head right now and really trying to get the features in. So I'm working on getting these features in, as well as the shadows, and proportion is my biggest focus at the moment. So as you can see, I don't really have a problem with making a mistake and going back in to fix it. So I'm creating shapes, and if the shapes aren't correct, then I'll just smudge it out and recreate it. So now at this point, I'm bringing in some lights to bring in a little more definition. These are some simple lights. The way I'm working right now is very light, so I'm not using heavy paint. I'm using basically a wash of oil paint. And at this point, I'm bringing in some color into it because I think I pretty much have everything positioned correctly. So I'm bringing in some of those oranges, and as things get further into the shadows, they become a little cooler, whereas the things in the light are a lot warmer. It's important to also bring in the background into the painting as you're working, especially if the background's going to be a different color than how the canvas is. So as you can see now, I'm really just focused on defining where everything goes. I'm not really focused on making anything pretty at all. I'm just trying to get my values correct and getting the proportions as accurate as I can as well. The way I think about painting at this stage is bringing in some lights to bring things forward and then pushing things further back at the same time. Okay, so this is important, and this is a trick that I've seen painters use a lot, especially the old masters, where their shadow is on their face. They create a very light background. I mean, it's not a white background, but it's a lot lighter than the general background. So where their shadow is, where the darkest part of their subject is, they'll bring in a lighter tone in the background. When the lighter side of the subject is, they'll push the background back. So they'll put that part of the background a bit darker. And that really creates a powerful illusion. I'm playing with these features, bringing some of them into the background. I don't like hard edges everywhere. That's a really big sign of an amateur painting when you just have hard edges. It's best to have some edges fading away. Of course, you can't just pick an edge to fade away. Usually where there's a shadow, where things are falling back, you blur the line of the background and the figure. When you have a clear distinction or something comes forward, then you allow the line to be very crisp. When I'm painting, I don't always think about the likeness of the subject. I mean, sometimes I do, especially when I'm doing commission work. But when it's my own work and I have a figure that I'm working with, it's not always about making the figure look as real as possible or making the figure look like the actual person, making the painting look like the actual person. a lot of the times I'm really trying to capture the soul of the person. So I want to capture more of a psychological intimacy, or a psychological sort of a vulnerability that we don't always see, and that I don't think I would be able to see if I was just painting the person as they are. Because likeness isn't really hard to achieve, but that other factor, I always find it a challenge to make the figure seem almost deeper. I think that's the right way to put it. I try to make the figure look deeper than the actual person. So because paintings have layers, and that means that they have, paintings have depth, they have layers, and people have layers. So I think it's an incredible translation when you go from a person to a picture. But the way that you're attacking this picture is through this process of creating layer and depth. As you can see at this point, I'm not really focused on blending. I'm more trying to correct my values anywhere that it isn't correct. I am, however, working on details, and this is just part 1 of this video. In a few days, I'm going to be posting part 2, so make sure you check that out. I'll link it down in the description as soon as I post it on here. And in part 2, I'm going to be working on the hair, the background. I'm going to be working on the transition between the figure and the background. I'm going to be playing with the values in the background and really trying to make this self-portrait evolve to something that I feel captures who I am, or perhaps an aspect of who I am. I really hope you join me for part 2. I really think it'll be helpful and informative, and I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. If you haven't, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I hope to see you in part 2. Take care.